Chuck Todd. Up next on Hotline TV, there's a birthday in the house.
Many of the materials we rely on every day come from the ground, and modern mining technology brings them to us. You can learn more about America's natural resources at nma.org, the National Mining Association.
From the Watergate Building in Washington, this is Hotline TV. Now, here are Hotline editors Chuck Todd and John Mercurio.
I'm John Mercurio, and today we are celebrating on Hotline TV.
It's a birthday of sorts, and I'm in the mood to pick the next Ronald Reagan. Earlier this week, Ronald Reagan would have had his 96th birthday.
That's in fact correct.
Turned 96 years
Tuesday.
old. And I assume that means that some state legislative candidate in North Dakota decided to honor him by naming a street sign after him in North Dakota.
Or some former Massachusetts governor, now presidential candidate, will in fact in some way recognize himself as the next Ronald Reagan.
And that's the point of the show. It's sort of like, okay, Ronald Reagan, most famous ex-Democrat in the Republican Party, right? One-time FDR guy. So all of these guys are trying to claim to be the next Ronald Reagan because what are they really saying? I'm not the next George Bush.
Right.
So it's all about a Reagan love fest in the Republican presidential primary. Who is, when you think of Ronald Reagan and what he was capable of doing for the Republican Party, which one of these guys comes closest in your mind?
You know, Mitt Romney isn't just pretending to do it. He actually said that he is
following
much
Reagan's
like
lead,
Ronald Reagan. When he was at the National Review Institute dinner a couple of weeks ago, he said, look, much like Ronald Reagan, I used to be pro-choice, much like Ronald Reagan was at one point, you know, a Democrat, and he changed his opinions and he became a hero to the Conservative Party. I think ultimately Mitt Romney, and you know I don't always agree or think that he's a great candidate, but I think to the extent that he could be for the conservative movement, if that's where he heads, probably one of their strongest advocates. I think he's probably most in the mold of Ronald Reagan.
I think what's interesting about Ronald Reagan is what he did is he gave voice to conservatives who felt like that Republican Party wasn't giving them a voice, but he really didn't do anything about their issues. On taxes, he was more of a rhetorical conservative than he really was a governmental conservative. Right. No, but I guess my point is, could Ronald Reagan get through the process today and be still called a conservative? This is what John McCain would argue, is that Ronald Reagan actually, his positions, this is a guy who signed a pro-choice bill into California. Could anybody who did that get the Republican nomination today?
I think you got to look at 1980. The Republicans so desperate to win back the White House after the Watergate era, after '76. They saw Ronald Reagan, the former governor of California, good-looking actor, much like Republicans, I think, were thinking in the year 2000. They wanted the White House back so badly. They saw George Bush. They saw him as sort of the heir apparent. They got behind him, even though when they looked below the surface, you saw they had some doubts about some of his ideological stands. So I think, I think today Reagan, given the right circumstances, but given his own sort of political skills, could definitely get beyond.
I'll say this: I think the three guys doing the best imitation at this point are Mike Huckabee, Mitt Romney, and Rudy Giuliani. All three of them, you can tell they're attempting to do Reagan. They're trying to be Reagan. They're not doing but hey, we got Rich Little coming to town because they needed to do that. But they're all trying to do the whole optimistic conservative thing, and that, to me, when I think of Reagan,
I wasn't listening because I never listened.
I don't mention.
Did you mention
Sam
Brownback?
Because I don't feel like he's an optimist
when you're done.
I don't feel like he's in the optimist.
Oh, he's very optimistic.
Tries to be.
Listen to his speech right now. He's very optimistic.
But that's the key thing here, and that's what McCain's missing, is the Reagan optimism.
Oh, I think actually, if you listen to Brownback, that's the word. I think he actually uses the word. I'm an optimistic conservative.
If you have to say it,
right?
Argue it. I mean, come on.
If you have to say it, that says that at least that's what you're trying to be, And I think that but that's what we're talking about today, is who's trying to be the next Ronald Reagan. And I think Brownback, although he sort of doesn't come from a place of having, transformed into being a conservative Republican, he always has been, is sort of in that mold.
Well, look, if somebody other than John McCain is the Republican nominee for president in '08, it'll be because somehow one of these other guys convinced the Republican electorate that they can be a Reagan, that they can be a Reagan-esque type figure in literally in appearance, in rhetoric,
and I think the person doing that most aggressively right now is Mitt Romney, which is hysterical if you look back at 1994 in his Senate race, What did he say in the debate with Ted Kennedy? We do not need a return to Reagan Republicanism.
Well, there you go. Take that, South Carolina Republicans.
That'll do it for today's show. Tune in tomorrow when we crown the next Zachary Taylor.
Hi-yo. And I'm Chuck Todd. We'll see you tomorrow on The Big Show on Hotline TV.